YouTube land, Tech Andrews there, welcoming you back to another action figure review. And today, let's move some stuff out of the way. Today we're having a look at not one but two Dungeons and Dragons Golden Archive and, well, Dungeons and Dragons Golden Archive, Dungeons and Dragons Honors Amongst Thieves figures. So these are essentially, they are reuse of the same parts. That's why I'm doing both back to back. But this, we're having a look at the boxes first. So this is the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which is the movie that recently, well, was it last year? Would have been 2023. I believe it was 23 it came out. It could be 22. I think it's 23. So it's the movie that came out with, oh, what's his name? The guy that was in Star Trek. I completely forgot. Chris Pine. That's it. So it's the one with him and Hugh Grant and Michelle Rodriguez and I can't remember the other actors, but it's that one. This is Owlbear / Doric. Now, a little bit of spoilers is if you haven't seen the film, this is basically one of the characters who plays a druid style character, and it is her wild shape form that she takes in the movie. The character's name is Doric, but the creature is an owlbear. So, flipping around the back of the box, having a quick look at the box, you can see just showcases an image of what you get in the box. It is 9 inches in height and 7.6 or 7.7 inches in width. That's if the arms are completely outstretched. The interesting, fun thing about these is they can go into both two-legged and four-legged forms. Here is the price that I paid for mine, which is from Ollie's, and I got this in the States. I wasn't in the States to get it, but my buddy picked me up both of these. So if I bring in the standard owlbear, so this is kind of traditional looking owlbear from the D&D game system. You can see this also was purchased at Ollie's for around the same price. And you have an image on the side of the box. In fact, if I bring in Doric's box again, you can see an image of her in her owlbear form. And on the back of the box of the standard owlbear, you have just an image again of the figure. It's saying it's 8.46 inches, which is slightly smaller than the Doric figure, which I don't think is true. I think they're about the same height. And you still got the 7.7 inch with the arms. I'm not sure if that's arms completely outstretched, because they kind of look, they don't look outstretched on the image on the back, but it is what it is. These are done back when they were doing plastic free packaging. They have since kind of reversed that, because what was happening is a lot of people were doing swap outs, and if you're not familiar with that term, they were basically stealing figures out of boxes or just swapping, buying a figure, returning it to the store with a crappy figure in the box, saying it wasn't what they ordered and getting their money back. Companies caught on to this and then started doing window boxes. Again, it sort of stopped the idea of what they were doing. Not scalpers, but the swappers, but it is still happening from time to time. So what we're going to do, I'm just bring back in the box. We're going to pause here and we're going to take a few seconds and set things up and then get back cracking with the figures. And here we have the two creatures in their, well, in all their plastic goodness. Now I will say, when you do get these, there is a bit of construction that you have to do. So this big chest area up here, the front and back, is a kind of a shell. So when you get these, they're separate in the box. There is an instruction sheet that came with the boxes. Unfortunately, I don't have them to hand. So what you do is you pop the head off, you plug these in. There is a front and back dedicated section. It's easier to see the front and back on this one, because obviously you're matching the colors. So the front has this orangey, kind of beige orange coloring, and the back has this darker brown to the lighter brown. So it's easier on the standard owlbear than it is with the Doric one. The Doric one you have to kind of guess. So you can see the patterning on the feathers do kind of a line up for when you're putting it together. So we'll take measurements for this thing, for these creatures. I do believe, if I'm thinking correctly, they're aberrations from the D&D. I know they're magical beasts, but I'm not sure if they're considered aberrations. In they used to be, I think, because in the old 3.5 edition and stuff like that, you weren't able to actually... druids have a thing where they can summon a familiar or summon a creature spell, and I don't think owlbears are one of the ones. You could summon a regular bear, but not an owlbear. So for the standing of the standard owlbear, you can see he does stand, or it does stand nearly 8.5, just over the 8.5 inches on its full tippy toes or tippy tops, which is higher thing than it said in the box. I know Doric's one said she was 8, was it? 9, and the other one was 8.46. So actually, that's about right for him. We'll stretch out Doric's legs. It's a bit tricky to do it on screen, and they do come with those alternate hands, but we'll get her head kind of set up and get her standing in her more natural or unnatural or natural pose, depending which way you want to look at it. It is a bit tricky to get these legs to align and get them to stand. That's probably the best I'm going to get. Let's see if she's actually higher. It did say she was 9. She doesn't quite seem to, she seems to be just around 8 as well. This one's actually more closer to 9 than this, so I'm not sure where they're measuring it from. And let's see if we can do the outstretched hands, because it said it was 7 inches. So we'll do those resting claw hands, which are the ones for the 4-legged pose. We'll do this on Doric. They should be the same because it said they are the same. So this is the arms fully kind of T-posed. We'll see how that comes out. From claw to claw is nearly 11 inches. I'm not sure if you can see that on screen. Let me push her back a touch. From like claw, she's nearly a foot across. So that's nearly 12 inches actually, which is a bit different to the 7 point something that they were saying on the box. So for accessory wise, these guys are fairly minimalistic. So as I said, you get a set of grabbing claws, which are these kind of cool grasp hand claws. Now initially when I did see these, this whole section here is a separate piece that's glued in place. I thought these might have been articulated because it does look like it on the other one. You can see the hands are exactly the same. There's no difference between the hands. Unfortunately, they're not articulated. They just pull out and plug in. So I'm not going to mess around doing it on screen because it is kind of, you have to put a little bit of force into it, and we already have an example of both versions of how they kind of stack up. So we'll have a quick 180 of the standard owlbear, if we can get him into a screen, because he's actually a bit taller. Hang on, let me bring up my camera a touch. So you can see his head. So the head is actually quite nice head sculpt on this thing. It does have that owl ability, which can rotate all the way around, but we'll get into that in a second because I want to do the articulation as a separate part. But you can move it around, and if I rotate it all around, you can see there's feathering patterns on the wings or on the arms. It has a shading, like a black fading shade to its body. You have this beige with the kind of black feathers kind of, you know, just jutting out. The head is probably the most detailed part. You have the owl eyes, which are pretty cool. And you have, it does look like a mixture of what would be a bear and an owl combined, which is pretty cool. As the name says on the tin, it is an owlbear. Similar, Doric in her owlbear form. I'm just going to move her arms down out of the way. so it's just a little bit easier to see on screen. She does have similar, she's all cast in the same kind of off creamy white plastic, and the only paint apps she has are her clawed hands. All the claws have been painted, including the one at the back. Same on the bottom of the feet, where she has actual pads, feet pads, or toe pads, is that what, feet pads on her. She has these kind of slightly offish grey decals for the feathering to kind of just denote the individual feathers on her. Similar, she has a kind of speckled design going along her arms, and on her back it's the kind of speckled owl, whereas this one kind of looks like the brown owl. This is kind of more the snow owl with speckling. Even on her head you can see that kind of speckled effect. And she has, I do think the head on this, and even on some of the actual figures, I don't have any of them to hand, but the heads on them kind of look, on especially on the creatures, look a bit more cartoonesque compared to the movie quality of some of the stuff. Like, so for example, and this is from the same company, these are all done by Hasbro. Here's the J. Jonah Jameson, who is based on the real actor that played him, as opposed to the comic book version of him. You can see the head looks more realistic, whereas this one is supposed to be based on a live action movie, and this one's more based on the kind of lore comic or artist renditions. This one still looks more artist rendition than as this one does, as in these both have a very similar look to them, but you can get over that. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause again. We're going to have a little look at the articulation on, I'll just do the articulation on one of these because they're exactly the same. There's no difference other than the heads, and that's it. That's the only difference between these two. So I'm going to set up for just articulation of one of these and then bring them both back in and we can have a look at them together. So bear with me a moment and we'll get set up. So decided to go with the standard owlbear for the articulation, just so it might be easier to see it on screen, because the Doric one is quite lightly colored, so you mightn't see all the articulation points, but we'll try and run through what we got. So as aforementioned, head does that weird owl 360. The neck can move forward and back, and that's more for getting it into the kind of when it's on its hind or on its all fours, or when it's raised up on its hind legs. The arms, as you could see earlier, do bend out. There is a butterfly joint in there, so they do bend out. The arm has a single jointed elbow with a hinge on it, so you can hinge it just before a 90-degree bend. It does rotate, but it rotates forward. Doesn't really rotate back because you have the feathers will match up and kind of get in the way. But when you have it stretched out, the way it's designed it so they align up together. You have that. You have this small shoulder pad piece up here that is attached to the butterfly joint, which helps kind of keep that, or it's actually on a ring on the inside of the butterfly joint. It keeps that kind of full feathered torso body construction together, where it kind of matches up with the aesthetics of the creature. The hands, depending on which hands you have in, if you have these grasp hands, do have a hinge on them. It's not the best hinge. There is a hinge on them. In fact, if I bring up its normal hand, you can see there is a big ratchet on it, but because this gets sunk in to this wrist cuff area, which it goes in quite far into the actual hand, it does kind of limit it a small bit. So you do have that. It does have a torso articulation, and again it comes into effect mostly for the hind, for like bringing it up onto its hind legs or down onto all fours. It can kick forward that much. Not much in the way of splits. It can do splits, I suppose, but it's mainly designed to kick forward so you can get into the crouching position. The legs have a knee joint, single knee joint, just like the arms, and single swivel on that knee joint. There is rocker ankles, or at least I believe there is rocker ankles. The sculpt around the cuff of the ankle does seem to hinder that a bit. It's hard to tell. I don't think there's a rotation on it, but the ankle does move forward and back. There is tiny peg holes on the feet, Like, you can get the owlbear in a kind of a, I suppose, with its knuckle dragging pose if you wanted, if you didn't want to outstretch or change all the hands out, so you can have it kind of do knuckle drag. If I put it back, you can see it. So I think that pretty much covers all the articulation for these guys. So they are big, they are chunky, they are pretty nice. So the Golden Archive line is a 1/12 scale line. So I'm gonna get this critter back up on its hind legs and get it all sorted for hopefully what I'm going to be doing next. So we can hopefully get it to stand. As I said, these are big chunky lads. If you're a fan of D&D or Dungeons and Dragons, they are quite nice. I do also have the Displacer Beast creature, but I don't think I've done a review for it. And I will eventually, I am planning to pick up the figure line that they started doing. So these guys, as I said, are in scale with this. These are the Marvel Legends. Excuse me. See, these are the more movie-verse Marvel Legends. So if you have the other Marvel Legends, it should still stack up. If you want something for your poor stormtroopers from Star Wars to be battling, if you don't have a Wampa, or you want something that has the same threat level as a Wampa but is more forest based, you can use one of these owlbears, which will look pretty cool. It doesn't have to be a realistic looking thing. And even if you have the old Amber collection Jurassic Park stuff, we recreated an owlbear from John Hammond. We spared no expense. So yes, you can have kind of crossover stuff if you want, or just as the D&D creatures as they are, if you want them on your shelf. They do look pretty cool. They do look impressive and kind of intimidating. Although, as I said, as I did point out, the Doric one kind of looks a bit more cartoony compared to live action. It is hard to probably translate that live action look over the figure, but it is a pretty sweet figure. As I said, if you're lucky enough at the time of this recording to live in the States and you have an Ollie's nearby, you probably can get everything from the movie and these creatures for a pittance. They do have them over here in Ireland in a store called JD Sports. I know it's kind of a weird name for it. They do have some of the D&D stuff from the game stores in JD Sports at the moment. The only difference is the owlbears in JD Sports are 47 euros, where I picked mine up for 10 euros, or $10, whichever way you want to look at it, and it was a lot more cheaper, even with shipping them, getting my buddy to ship them over to me and paying the import fees and whatnot on them. Worked out better for me in the long run, because he did send me over a whole bunch of stuff, so it wasn't just these guys. There's a few other bits and pieces as well, just that he picked up in Ollie's as well, because they also have like the old Star Wars vintage collection and retro collection. He did pick me up the Star Wars vintage collection Black Chrysanthemum is his name, I think, the big black haired Wookiee from the Book of Boba Fett series. And he also picked me up was it Cad Bane? I think it was Cad Bane, the retro collection Cad Bane, it was the retro collection Obi-Wan from the Obi-Wan TV series. So he did pick me up a few other things, but that's beside the point. Getting off track, I do love these little owlbear dudes, or these massive chunky owlbear guys. They do take up some shelf space, so if you are planning to get them, just be wary that they do, even if they're up in their hind quarters, they do tend to still be quite tall. And if you have them on all fours, they will take up a chunk of space as well. So just if you're planning a display, just bear that in mind as well. So there you go, guys. I'm going to wrap this up here. Hopefully this will be a short, sweet, and okay review. And I hope you enjoyed it and enjoyed watching this. I do appreciate you watching it to the completion. And if you can, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share this video with anyone you think might appreciate this so I can help grow my audience base. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you have a great day. Cheers, guys.